Modern games hate lives. That's not a bad thing, it's just an observation. Back in the day, games could be really frustrating and difficult. You'd want to farm lives in easy levels to avoid a game over that could reset all your progress. Modern games recognize that that's something that's frustrating and boring. Shadow Generations, for example, had no life system at all, and that didn't stop it from being amazing. But what if lives did matter? What if the very concept of having a life counter was a resource you could use in levels? And what if game overs were something to be feared and something that you could respect, but also something you can avoid? That's the very design philosophy of Mortal, and wow, this is the game of UFO 50, at least as far as the first 6 that we've played so far. We're playing through all of them 1 week at a time. Mortal is a platformer, but you're not just one character. In fact, you look kind of generic because you're part of a fleet. You've got the entire army of Mortolia who is out there defending their kingdom from an ancient evil threat that's reawakened. There's the ritual of arrow, which sends you flying. There's the ritual of bomb, which blows you up. And there's the ritual of stone, which turns you into a stone. We start the game off with 20 lives in the very first level, 1A, the Outer Ruins. And after your mothership deploys you, you end up running into a problem. You can't actually jump over this first wall, so what do? How about the ritual of arrow, which jams your body into the wall, and now it can be jumped on. It is a little ledge that can be moved around. Now, there are some spikes over here. That's a problem. You might try to test an HP system in this game, right? Well, nope. Any one hit will kill you. The mortals are fragile little beings. But how about the ritual of stone? Now, you can jump off the body of the old mortal to make it across. In fact, you can actually jump off your dead body here. Truly, no body from the Mortolians goes to waste. Now, the ritual of bomb will blow up this part up here to continue, but if we time it just right, see that little 1 that popped up when we killed that enemy? Every time you kill 3 enemies, you'll get 1 life back, which is important. Look at the top right corner. We're down to 16 lives out of 20. That doesn't sound so bad now, but there's a whole campaign we have to get to, and those lives carry over. But take a look, we got 3 lives here. Sure, we might lose a life turning into the arrow, but we'll gain 2 as a profit. And you'll notice your mothership moving as well. You can't actually move backwards in this game, which is something to keep in mind. In fact, the way that the mothership deploys is very important. Unlike other games like Mario or Sonic where lives are kind of arbitrary, in this game it's really important. Going from 3 to 6 is a huge deal in terms of actually having the resources we need to succeed the level. Thankfully, beating each level will give you 10. So you've got a little bit of a kick to your step when you get into it. Unfortunately, our bomb right here is going to blow up the arrow, but that's okay. We can still just jump over that ledge right here. We did not do that well on the first level. It's our first time playing. Going from 20 to 13 lives is a -7, but let's continue the campaign and see what happens. Some enemies take more than 1 hit to kill, which is really awkward for lives. So rather than waste 3 lives to try and kill one of these guys, it's better off that we sequester them and instead just make on our merry way. Here's another fun puzzle. This switch is what allows us to actually make it past here, but if we turn into a block, we're not going to be able to squeeze past it. So instead what we'll do is jump up top and use our dead body down there. Oh, whoops. We'll use our dead body right there to sift on through, and then we'll end up getting 5 extra lives. Another cool thing, you don't actually die by hitting these spikes there. When I first played this game, I would try to blow them up, which didn't work. Then I'd spawn up top. I'd think, okay, I have to lose a life anyway. Nope, you can actually just move through the side. We ended up beating this level with 12 lives, which is also not very good. That ended up being a -1 there. This is a little awkward because now we've only got 12 lives for the rest of the game, and it's not so easy to just keep making lives, especially as the levels get harder. But the cool thing is, this is like a math equation, right? 20 minus 7 minus 1 equals 12. What if we go back in time to level 1A and change things up? Now take a look at that. Because we have beaten the level and got a good sense of how it went, we went from -7, 20 to 13, to +9, and that math changes itself throughout the rest of it too. So instead of farming levels for lives infinitely, you're actually incentivized to replay certain levels, because if you see that there's, you know, maybe a negative there, like a -5, or maybe even like a small plus, like, you know, only a +1 or 2, that's a prime spot to change the math on the entire game and end up getting a lot more lives for the rest of the campaign. This is like the tiniest taste of Mortol. It is a phenomenal game. Honestly, if you are interested in playing and you want to avoid spoilers, just stop the review right now. Go pick it up and play it. UFO 50 is $25 for 50 high-quality games. The previous 5 that we played have all been really great in their own right, but this game, man, it just takes it to the top. So if you're still here and you're down with the spoilers, let's talk more. So there are all sorts of crazy things you can do in this game, like setting yourself on fire, turning yourself into a human torch, but then your body can disintegrate, but then you can also jump in water to cool off, but then you might drown, but then your drowned body could turn into a ledge to jump off of. There is so much that happens in terms of the elements, in terms of these really bizarre interactions. The game is truly both a puzzle game and a platformer. I know there's been a lot of games in the past that kind of skirt the line between the two, but I don't think I've ever played a game quite like Mortol that blends the two of them together so seamlessly. It is a puzzle game that requires a lot of skill and finesse, especially when it comes to combining your rituals and pulling off these crazy intricate ideas, especially because it's really easy to mess up. You get one hit, you die instantly, and you are immediately reminded how fragile these little mortals are. At the same time, it is a platformer that requires you to be slow and methodical at times. In fact, I've been seeing a lot of really high-level players who aren't trying to speedrun the game, although of course that's a thing too, but rather trying to farm as many lives as possible. It's a really interesting challenge run. Look at these shenanigans right here. I cannot believe the level of skill that the highest levels of Mortol are able to pull off. I thought I was pretty good on my main file, getting +8s and +6s. The fact that you can get +30s is absolutely phenomenal, but it really goes to show you just how much meat Mortol has. It is phenomenal to see a game like this, where normally when you're trying to speed through a game in Mario, you're not really caring about collecting every little coin. You know, you might see some dinosaur coins here and there that are decent for collectibles, but for the most part, you're just trying to make it to the end. It's a lot of skill, sure, but maybe it's a little mindless too. This is a game where you really are slowing down and thinking, okay, if I, throw myself at this challenge, if I, turn into an arrow, if I stack up some stones, maybe I can get this +5, and that will end up being maybe a +3, but is there any world where I can squeeze off a little bit of that, make it a +4 instead? Is there any world where I can dodge this enemy instead of sequestering it? Can I min-max in little ways here? Maybe my little bomb can just barely hit the enemy there to get 1/3 of a life. I mean, this is a game that makes platforming into this min-maxing challenge that you might actually enjoy, but you can also opt out of it too. If you just want to beat the game, you don't have to labor over every little strategy and try to, min-max every single nickel and dime opportunity. No, you can also just plow through the game as intended. In fact, the first time I did end up beating it, I had a pretty low score. The final 2 levels, whoo, boy, they are interesting and they're really difficult because they force you to challenge yourself and think about all the ways that the elements interact. I talked about water and fire earlier, but there's also plants that can transform your body into this exploding vine that goes straight upward, but then fire will disintegrate it and burn it to pieces. So you look at all these challenges in the second to last level and you think, wow, like what is the best solution here? How do you go about it? When I first played it, I was just kind of frustrated and I just plowed through it as much as possible. I didn't really care how many lives it took because heck, I had over 46 at the time. I thought that was more than enough to make it through the end. And I'll tell you, the final stage of the game is its only boss. In fact, bosses so far have been pretty rare in UFO 50. We've only played the first 6, but was kind of an interesting thing in itself. That final boss, so cool. So freaking cool. You've got the top side, you've got the bottom side. There's so much chaos happening on the screen, and you trying to make heads and tails of it, trying to find the ways to damage the enemy. It's a real interesting blast. I've never fought a boss that felt so much like a puzzle in the way that this did, which again, I think is just something so exceedingly cool. Yes, of course, there are plenty of boss fights that have clever strategic solutions in all sorts of games, but something about this with Mortol, I can't even really put it into words. It was so cool. Now, when you end up beating the game, a really cool thing happens. In the credits, there is a code called Ben's Mode. You may have thought to yourself, what the heck is Ben's Mode? Well, if you go and hit the start button, you can go to the terminal area in UFO 50 and you have a password input spot. I've yet to find any passwords for the previous games. If there are any, let me know in the comments. I'm kind of curious if there were, and maybe I glossed over them. But this was the first one that I uncovered, and it actually unlocks something interesting. At first, when you boot up Ben's Mode, you've got 150 lives, and you think, okay, this is like easy mode or debug mode or whatever, you know, so be it, that's how it is. Until you play a little longer and realize there are no extra lives to be found. Zero. You don't even get partial credit for killing enemies. That 150 lives, that's what you got for the rest of the game. So it turns into a survival challenge game as opposed to just like a min-maxing opportunity. Super, super cool. I love this twist, and it's a really worthy password extra feature that Mortol was able to get into it. As far as the fictional lore for Mortol goes, it came out in March of 1984. The concept of the game was conceived by Benedict Chun, but it was directed by Jerry Smolsky. The game does reveal that this is the first game in the Mortol series, which, first of all, extremely fitting, right? This is absolutely a game that I'm sure gamers would have gone wild over back in the fictional 80s, and I personally cannot wait to see what innovations and iterations happen with future installments of the game. But I thought it was really interesting that they highlight that part of it was done by Chun, part of it was done by Smolsky. The ongoing lore of UFO 50 is that these two people came together to create UFO Soft, which is the company responsible for all these wonderful games we're playing. But I wonder if this distinction between what half was Smolsky and what half was Chun is maybe hinting towards a future rift or a future bit of creative challenges that might happen, especially with future games in Mortol, maybe even the company at large. I'm extraordinarily curious. Please don't drop any spoilers. I've been fascinated about the meta lore of UFO 50, and I'm only going after things that I can find in-game based off the first 6. So if there's any details based on the first 6, yes, absolutely post it, but otherwise, please kindly keep it to yourself. I also thought it was really interesting that in the credits, it says this game was in memory of Melda Smolsky, who I would imagine is Jerry Smolsky's wife. I'm fascinated by this because Mortol as a game is very, very much about death. I mean, that's extremely blatant, right? The game is built around the resource of death, but then you look at the influence of the final boss that feels very Mayan. It feels like there's a lot of sacrifices that are going down. The fact that your actions are called rituals, I think, is extraordinarily fascinating. And I wonder if the death of Melda Smolsky was a large catalyst for the development of this game. I wonder if maybe Smolsky was grieving over who I assume is his wife and was trying to think of ways to make death something more palatable. I don't know. That's just me spitballing here. I would love to know what you scouts think about this game. I am giving this game 10 Barbudas. I cannot believe how good it is. I would be blown away to see other games on UFO 50 that I like more than this, but also we are just barely over 10% done of the entire game's library, so I am extraordinarily looking forward to see what more games this amazing, amazing compilation has to offer. Again, UFO 50 is probably the most insane deal I've ever had in my life. It is such a good game. If you can take one thing away from this, any scouts who don't own it, please, please, please purchase this game. It is so freaking good. Anyway, I'll catch you guys next week for some more fun. We're diving into Velgris, and I am looking forward to seeing you there. Catch you later, scouts.